All right. Yay, Facebook is alive.
For the
All right,
moment.
ladies. Um, welcome. Welcome to our special session today with Jenny and um welcome to our Facebook group. We're gonna have a great time. We're gonna take as long as we need. And I know she's going to give you lots of fantastic information to support your marriage, your relationships, your family life. And she's just a really good person. She's a really good friend. We met not, well, probably a year ago, a
Year
little
and a
over a
half,
year ago.
probably.
Yeah. Yeah, at a Christian business conference, and it was phenomenal. And it's amazing how people are drawn to each other,
Mm-hmm.
uh, drawn to each other's heart. And she has a heart for families, for children, for heart healing, and rebuilding relationships. So, if you just want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself, and then we'll get into what you have to offer.
Fantastic, Christy. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. Yeah, so I'm Jenny. You see those letters by my name. By profession, I am a speech pathologist and a behavior analyst. So talking and behavior are my top things. I am also a Jesus lover of many, many years. So I try and infuse that wherever I can, because I think that helps families see real lasting change and not just behavior modification. Um, I know for myself, just trying to do the right thing over an extended period of time doesn't always work. And so I hope to give family strategies that are workable, doable, maintainable, all of those types of things. I am a mom. I have a daughter who's 24 years old. She's a first lieutenant in the United States Army Infantry. She's currently stateside, and she's the executive officers of her headquarters, something, something, something. Christy, you would probably know what all of that means. I don't. I just know she goes to work every day. Is that great? Um, but with my job, I work with families all the time, and I have worked across the lifespan. So folks with probably my youngest kiddo in a family was like 9 months old, and my oldest kiddo is an adult child in their 30s or 40s, still trying to figure out the how do we do mom and dad thing and launch out onto our own. And so I kind of come up with some ideas, some things that I see families struggle with, and maybe some helpful solutions for them. Um, yeah, and I love coffee, so
Oh,
gotta
well,
let me gotta let me take a sip here and there. Okay.
you and I agree on that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm a coffeeaholic and I admit
Yep.
it. Well, thank you for introducing yourself, and that is amazing. And that is a lot. So if you would just break that down and maybe hit some key areas where you really want to impact families and relationships and people's heart healing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I have three things I'd love to touch on for your mamas today. Um, and I don't know them, so I'm not assuming anybody's doing the things that I'm going to say, hey, please don't do this. But I'm all about tweaking. I'm all about do that one little thing that might get one little thing a little bit better today. And so the first thing I want to talk about is let's parent out of kindness and not coercion. Now, I'll say when I took my class on coercion probably 10 years ago, I'm like, I don't even know what that word means. So I'll just give you my little layperson definition. So coercion is when we try and get somebody to do the right thing, but we do it in a threatening kind of a poke or a jab or holding something over their head. Maybe legally, you've heard the term, you can't use this testimony because it was coerced, like maybe at gunpoint or with threats of jail time. And so, from that point of view, we understand coercion, but it's also something that we see all the time in sitcoms and movies. And unfortunately, we bring it into our homes. But the easiest way that I can get parents to think about it is that it's a poke or it's a jab, and maybe it's a little one. But think about it. I don't know. I was a kid, 4 kids in my family, grew up Catholic, and we would sit there in the pew and my sister would poke me until boom, you know, I'm tired of the pokes and I'm just going to punch her back in the middle of mass. Yes. Okay. So even little pokes can build up, right? One little bruise might be not so much of a big deal, but you put another bruise on top and another bruise on top and another bruise on top. And I will tell you that as parents, we get the same pokes from our kids. And then that's when overreactions can happen on our part. So let me give you a couple of examples of coercion. And Christy, then maybe you can say, oh, yeah, my moms, I've heard them talk about that one, right? So one of my favorite ones is called questioning. And this is when mom walks in the room and says, how many times have I told you not to leave whatever, your shoes there, the homework on the table, the dog's water in the middle? And what do we want our kids to answer? Oh, mama, I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again. When the real answer is, 5,324 times, mom. Have you heard your moms talk about something like that, Christy?
So that is actually a question I was going to bring up. So, we're a community of blended family.
Mhm.
And when it comes to your bonus children and navigating that piece right there inside the home, there is lots of emotions and negative emotions that build up behind that.
Yes.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah. So as the mom trying to figure out where those emotions are coming from, and all of this stuff, kind of merges, melts together, swirls, right? And so it's not step 1, step 2, step 3. But when we can stop and take a step back and look at, okay, why is this happening? Why does my kid leave their shoes in the middle of the floor, right? They are my kid now. It's my family. We're all trying to do this together. But kid A or kid B, child 1, child 2, child 10, what's the point of leaving the shoes in the middle of the floor? Is it that they don't know the skill? And every mom's going to say, no, they know that that's where it's supposed to be, right? We all know that they know. And so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so what is it? And part of what this comes down to, and I'll share this with your folks if you'd like, Christy, is values. It's just not important to them as a kid. They're fully functional to jump over the shoes and head out the front door and get have dinner on the table with the books there and spill the dog's water and keep on trucking. So their values aren't the same as our values. And especially if the kids are 7 to 12 to 15, where they've had other values maybe established before we came along. And so one of the things I do with my parents is called a values sort. And you can do it as a mom, you can do it as a couple, and you can do it as a family. And it's a stack of cards. And my cards are probably over in my office somewhere, so I won't go get them. But it's a stack of 80 cards, and you actually cut them up, and you got to touch them. And you do this quick little drill, and you go through and you read it, and you say, important to me as a mom, not important to me as a mom. And there's no judgment. And you sort them out really fast. And the point is to go from 80 to 5. Yeah, 80 to 5. And so what we find is, especially when you do this as a mom, and then you do it again, maybe with your kids. And I have one that I think is tailored towards maybe middle schoolish age kids. I don't know if I have one that's younger than that. So the vocabulary is a little more understandable. You realize that my kids' values aren't the same as mine. These other people living in my house, maybe my husband. I did it with my husband and we had arguments about what was our value. And we had to agree to disagree. And it's like, okay, well, that's the Jenny mom wife value. And that's the Chris dad, husband value. But the family values, we came up with the ones that were important. So then when you're saying, why are the shoes still in the middle of the floor? And you're realizing that's not important to anybody in your house but you, then you can make a different decision. I can move the shoes and I can be happy. I can be settled with myself. or I can agree with everybody else in the house, and I can look over here at my pretty collage on the wall or my pictures of whomever and find my happy place someplace else. But it comes back to a choice for us instead of a, why am I mad at my kid?
So that little game or card process you were talking about,
Mhm.
would you say that that also gives the child an opportunity to feel like they're providing value, like what, they have a part and
Yeah.
a voice in that?
Yes. Right. Everybody gets to play the
Yeah.
game. Everybody gets to be important. And I've never done this with more than a family with one or two kiddos. So if you've got three or four kiddos, wow. I mean, I can just see that stirring and mixing. But even the process of being able to say, well, that's important to me, but I see where it's not important to the rest of the family can just be so valuable. Um, my daughter loves high heel shoes and I like tennis shoes. Is either of us wrong? No. But there are things that she can do in the high heel shoes, like reach the shelves, that I can't. And there are things that I can do in my tennis shoes, like run down the street, that, well, maybe she could run down the street in her heels, but right. And so it's not about right or wrong, but it's, am I okay letting you be you? And how do we help that keep our home, our physical home, safe and functional, not breaking ankles over shoes or spill dog water?
Yeah, wow, that's pretty powerful. I see the value in that,
Yeah.
huge value. But and I may be stepping outside of your parameters, but what if mom has some baggage? What if she has some trauma or feels like um, she's not being supported by her new partner and he's not holding his children accountable? We see that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yes. Yes. So, uh, I think I saw, maybe it was in the bio that I gave you, helping couples save their marriage before it needs saving. But oftentimes we don't catch folks there. And we get folks when they're in, maybe not yet to crisis, right? But they're in a really uncomfortable place in their home. And they're like, man, this is not what I thought was going to happen. I, had one previous marriage that I knew it was time to exit. And so now I'm in another one and thought it was going to be the cool thing. It was going to be, the one that was going to last. It was going to be my soulmate. And now all of a sudden we're butting heads instead of really thriving and growing and nurturing our family together. So couple of different things. Number one, again, I'm going to come back to, well, what's the value when our values are not upheld by other people? We get offended or we get minimally hurt, right? If it's important to me to be on time, I am the queen of being on time, and my husband doesn't show up on time or doesn't try and get my kid to something on time, then Jenny gets a hurt. I get a wound. And same thing with those pokes that we were talking about with coercion and different attitudes that we use in our home. When those wounds aren't taken care of, I mean, you guys are moms. You've had a kid who had a scrape and didn't tell you, and now it's oozing down their leg. And we're like, oh my gosh, emergency room trip or something, right?
Yeah.
Because in the natural, we can see what wounds do when they're not tended to. But what about wounds in our hearts when they're not tended to? The same thing can happen. It's just how we're made. And then somebody who can't see what's in our heart walks by and touches that nasty thing. And what do we get? Wham! Big overreaction. And everybody in the room's going, what's up with Jenny? Right? Where did that come from? And where it comes from is last week, the week before, 2 weeks before, 2 months before, when something happened that hurt and I didn't deal with it. And so the big question is, well, so how do we start dealing with this stuff? And I will say, I have seen the success rate of dealing with hurts skyrocket when you do the process as a couple. But I've also seen the process be effective if mama just needs to get some healing for mama, right? So maybe I'm not even at the place where I want to go to my spouse. Maybe we're newly together. Maybe we've been together a couple of years, whatever it is, but I just want some help and some healing for me. Well, and I probably should have pulled this up and I probably should have it memorized. Give me 2 seconds. Let me pull up my little app, right? There's an app for that. In the Bible, Jesus shows up in the temple, right? He's not yet started his full public ministry, and he shows back up in, boy, this is bad. I'm trying to multitask. Wherever it was he's from, right? And they say, hey, Master, let's go to the temple, right? And he shows up in the temple, and they honor him because he's the local guy, and they hand him the scroll, the scroll to read out of, right? It's like, okay, we'll let you read this thing. And he stands up and he says, trying to find it with no glasses on, right? So they hand him the scroll, and if you know anything about Judaism, there's a specific thing that you're supposed to read on every day. So they handed him the specific day. But the scripture says, but Jesus opened to the book of Isaiah. So he found his message. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're already going to be in trouble. What are you going to say? And what he said was, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. And I'll interject, what gospel is that, Jesus? Tell me about it. And he says, the reason I showed up, the reason I'm here, is because God has sent me to heal the brokenhearted. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, and to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. He said, this is why I showed up on earth. This is why I agreed to this deal. And so my husband and I, I'll kind of give you a little backstory. I came from a really dysfunctional family, 4 kids. We all were a mess. And I graduated grad school without admitting myself to the psych ward. I'm not sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but found myself in a church. And one of the ladies who met me said, you need to come to this counseling program. God bless her, right? Step yourself right up into my life. And I did. And I spent a year and a half doing this counseling program every Monday night, learning these principles out of Luke 4, chapter 4, verses 18 and 19. How do you heal the broken heart? How do you get liberty from bondages and captivities? How do you get your sight restored so that you can really see what's happening versus what's not happening? And then I met my husband, and he's like, okay, let's be friends. Okay, let's date. Hey, do you want to get engaged? And I don't know, Christy, you're about my age, but you remember when the preaching series used to come in the big book, and you'd open it up and there'd be 10, 12, 13 cassettes inside, and you'd pull out the cassette tape and play it. Do you remember those binders?
I remember the binders, I think, from school.
From school. Okay, well, so I handed him one of those, and it had 13 cassette tapes in it. And I said, we can talk about being engaged, but every week we're going to go over one of these tapes, because this is how I process life. This is how I deal with hurts. This is how I deal with bad attitudes. So if you want to do this with me, then we can talk about this. And he said, ma'am, yes, ma'am. And
Wow.
we've
So
been
you were
married.
in control of letting him know what you needed
Yeah. And
before you said I do.
I'm not totally sure it was good control. There was still a lot of woundedness. And
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys have seen it. You think you kind of get life together, and then you enter a new phase, and all of a sudden all this stuff's flying around again. Well, I can't deal with hurts from parenting until I become a parent. I can't
right.
deal with hurts, or don't even realize they're there, from my parents' poor marriage. They divorced, and like I said, very dysfunctional. Um, but I won't see my judgments and my bad attitude of my parents until I try and go get married. So we think we're doing okay, and then the next thing happens, right? When we finally said, yes, let's get engaged, bam, a whole new bucket of stuff opened.
Yeah.
When we got married, bam, it's like, wait a minute, haven't we been doing this? So thankfully we laid a foundation. And so the first step is see the hurts and let Jesus heal the hurts. And it's really a simple process, right? He just said, I came to heal the brokenhearted. And so as parents, not only do we want to heal our own hearts or let Jesus heal our hearts, but we also want to learn how to do this for our kids. And
Yeah.
so when I hear myself raising my voice, right? We have a saying when we teach this in a class, and we make you guys repeat it back until you get this. But anger is the manifestation of a wound. So when I see anger, I don't take offense at that. I go, oh, boy, something's really hurting. Somebody just got touched on that gooped up wound that the other person didn't see. And maybe that other person is my kiddo, right? Didn't see that mama's got a thing here. And my kiddo just, and now all of a sudden I've got this big anger overreaction thing. And so it's as much as you can before you speak. And I know this is a whole lot harder than I'm making it sound. It's, Jesus, what's that hurt? Okay, heal that hurt in my heart. Heal that hurt in my heart. Now, when we teach this to couples, we teach kind of a more lengthy prayer, but God is so faithful. He doesn't need fluff and all of this stuff. So it's truly just show me the hurt and heal the hurt. There's no blame. There's no, I'm going to go talk to my dad because he did that, right? There's none of that, because it's not about them. It's about you. So Jesus, heal that hurt, and then help me love my kid. And then when I just screamed at my kid, it's this casual little, you just bring the little kid over, however old they are, and say, oh man, I bet that just hurt. Jesus, heal that hurt. And it can be that simple. So even if maybe your kids, your bonus kids, aren't in the same place Jesus-wise where you are, again, this doesn't have to be a real churchy thing, but it is a massively effective thing simply because Jesus said this is how it's going to work. And it doesn't only work for those special Christian people, right? Jesus healed non-Christians and it brought them to him, right? So when maybe our kids don't understand Jesus like we do or church like we do, the bonus kids, especially if they haven't grown up with you, you can still pray these simple prayers. Man, I prayed over wounds for Sophie's my child when she would be asleep. I would go in and say, God, I had a really bad day today. And I would sit on the edge of her bed and I'd put my hand on her little chest as a 3-year-old. And I'd say, man, Jesus, heal those hurts from where I yelled at her for this. Heal those hurts from where I threw her favorite toy out the car because she was screaming in the van. And, you know, yes, I did that. You know, heal the hurts in Sophie from this, that, and the other. And she'd wake up tomorrow and we'd have a different kind of day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were talking at the beginning about the poke,
Mhm.
I saw myself with a couple of my children. It's like, you poke them, you don't see a reaction, or you don't think it made an impact, and you poke again. And like you said, you poke so many times, and they're trying to be brave. They're trying to, mommy still loves me. And then it's just a brokenness,
Yeah.
and we don't realize, and I teach this inside my community, is inadvertently, if we're not addressing our own trauma and pain and hurts, we're bringing it into our families, and we're projecting it on them, and we don't even realize it
Right.
until we feel really rotten.
Yeah. Yeah. And when it comes back to coercion, um, it's culturally acceptable, right? We talk about things like questioning, why did you do that when you know the answer? You just want them to fess up. Arguing with my 5-year-old, I'm right, you're wrong. Right? Um, Despair. Oh, can't you please just do that for mommy? I work so hard for you. Can you just, for the love of God, be good for an hour, right? So there are these things that we do, but watch TV tonight or the movies that you watch and start pulling out those little pokes that there's the laugh track behind. And we see it in our culture today as comedy or bantering, or it's just how we talk to each other. It's how we communicate. And it's like we're beating each other up all the time and we're being told that it's okay. So I have a handout. It's actually a workbook. I think it's about 30 pages that I'll make available to your community. If they shoot me an email, I can send it back to them. That goes through, I think, 11 different forms of coercion. Now, there's probably thousands, but in my years of doing this with parents and staff at different locations, caregiver people. These are the things that have risen to the top that we tend to see a lot of. And the workbook gives you kind of a layperson definition, not a Webster's dictionary. It gives you an example of what this might sound like in your house. And then it gives you, what could you do instead? It's called Say Nice Things is the name of the little workbook, right? So how do we say nice things to our kids when we really don't want to? And so it gives you examples of that. And then it also has places for reflection. Where do you think this is coming from? What could you do differently? What needs to be healed? What needs to be changed? And so I'd love to make that available to your
That
women,
would be
mamas.
fantastic, because it does take work, right?
It does
If
take work.
if we don't put the work in, we're not going to see a difference.
Yeah.
And we're just going to continue to build walls brick by brick, negative feelings, and just project more, and relationships break apart.
Yeah.
Did you know that the statistics for second and third marriages dissolving is so much higher than first marriages?
Really? I did not.
70% of second and third marriages dissolve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if
So
we could get some of this healing to happen,
yeah,
maybe we could save some of these marriages.
yeah.
Yeah.
Help them help themselves.
Right. Right. And create patterns that are sustainable, right? Our kids go to school every day and come home wounded. My kid was bullied at school, and I'm just like, even to today, and we've prayed this up one side and down the other, she'll get in different situations where she feels, oh, I don't want to do that because I don't want to get rejected. I don't want to go do that because I feel too alone today. And I'm just like, wow. And this is my really grounded, wise, nurtured kiddo. But we've also taught her how to pray. So she'll come home and she'll call me and she'll say, Mom, I went to this thing today and it was a disaster. And so we pray through it, right? Because she's like, I don't want to do this again. So God, you're faithful. You're showing me something that you have brought to my attention. I'm going to work this process because I know how. And that's what we teach in our 8-week class for couples. And I say couples, but you have to come with a partner. So it could be your mom, your sister, your whomever. But we teach an 8-week class on how to do Luke 4:18 and 19 on an ongoing basis. But you learn it with somebody that you'll be able to practice it with. Now, my prayer, my dream would be that it would be a couple. It would be your spouse. It would be your fiance, whoever that is, so that you guys are laying this foundation together. I'm thinking, man, maybe we need to do a families class, but I think we do the couples first, and then we do a families class because we've done this with teenagers before. Um, when I was, I said I spent that year and a half going through this process myself. We would have groups for teenagers. So you go and you get some lecture and then you go get hands-on. This is how you actually pray this stuff. And the teen groups, oh my gosh, right? I had ladies in my group that were 45, 55, 65 years old going, gee, can you fix my life? And I was like, what if we could get our 15-year-olds to learn this process? What if we could get our 12-year-olds to learn this process? I remember, right, indoctrination at its finest. I remember driving down the road with Sophie in the car, and she must have been 4 because she was still in a car seat. And I'm yelling at the crazy drivers in Miami. And from the back seat, I hear, Mom, do you want to confess that judgment now or later? And I'm like, oh, I'll do it now if you pray for me. And she prays for me. And I'm just like, okay, this is why I do what I do. I love helping couples. I love helping parents, but my heart is for those kids who have an opportunity to live life differently because their parents are pouring into them the love and forgiveness of Jesus and not the rules and rigidity of, hey, you've got to perform this way.
So I am so glad you brought up the kids, because I have a heart for children as well and their resiliency. So our generations are not equipped with resiliency. And that's a huge reason we're seeing such a high suicide rate.
Yeah.
They have no ability to deal with the negativity in the world. And that's that's a fundamental question. How do you build resiliency in children without them being hurt or traumatized or broken? And it's what you said, it's building from the heart
Yeah.
and connecting them to their maker.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I give you a tagline on that? Um, because some of the wording that we're trying to put in our messaging is that we want home to be the place that our kids find the best, the easiest, or the most love, acceptance, and commitment. And acceptance we use in a little different way. It's not tolerance. It's not, I accept your mess. I accept your shoes in the middle of the road. It's acceptance of, I'm willing to accept it. Well, I'm willing to accept my life, even if it's hard today, right? It's the idea that I can do hard things. And if it makes me suffer for a minute, if it makes me sad for a minute, if it makes me almost angry for a minute, I can be okay with that because I know between the love and the commitment that I find at home, we're going to be okay. I'm going to be okay, right? Maybe I got a D on a test today and I am shattered because that's never happened. I don't teach mamas to go, "Oh, it's going to be okay, baby. Let's study and next time you'll do better." It's, "Wow, I just see that you're shattered, right? Let's just kind of sit here and be sad a minute and have a good cry with your kid." Right? Your 15-year-old who's in all the honors classes and this is really crushing. Let's just be in that for a minute. Jesus said there will be trials and tribulations. He didn't say skip over them. I think the implication is learn how to go through it, and that's what builds that resiliency. Initially, mom will do it with me. Maybe a sibling will do it with me. Dad will do it with me. But then I learned that I can be okay with this by myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Society is pushing avoidance. So there and social skills, relationships are built over social media and text messaging, not even phone conversations anymore. And I think it's assisting the mental anguish that the children and young adults are going through.
Yeah.
Um, but going back to, what you were explaining in the family dynamic, that's one thing I tried to express to my kids, but not so eloquently as you just expressed it. I always told them, when you have nothing else or nobody else, you always have your family. No
Mhm.
matter what you do, how disappointed you think we are, we will never stop loving you, and we're always going to be here. When nothing else works out, we do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. Our culture, like you were saying, is big on this one, that we have to escape the pain. We have to avoid the pain. And that builds in a real rigidity into the thinking. And that's really the opposite of resilience, right? So we have acceptance. I can do the hard things. I'm resilient. I know the tools to be in it and get through it on one side. That's pretty healthy. And then on the other side, it's, I can't. I have to run away. I'm not going to let that happen. And we become very rigid, and rigidity breaks and crashes and can't be repaired, shatters into 1,000 pieces. And so this side over here is absolutely what we want to model for our kids. And one thing that I think helps with resilience, right, not being rigid, is when we as parents model that. And I know that's a no-brainer, right? What we do, our kids do. We parent out of how our parents parented until somebody tells us or shows us something different. But one of the other things that I teach, typically moms, because they're the ones home during the day with the kids or spending the most times, especially with the young ones, is the idea of creativity, not conformity or control, right? Our world, our school system teaches conformity. Do it like everybody else. As moms, we want control, we want order, we want organization, we want you to do it right in our house. But again, that doesn't build flexibility, that builds rigidity. So the other side of that is creativity. And so when you have a kiddo who's like, nope, not going to do it your way, mom, whatever they call you, Jenny, right? New mom is not mom, you're Jenny. So they're just like, no, or there's no response at all. If we can help our parents take a step back and kind of get the point of view of the child and say, why not? Right? What's the rub? What's the resistance to doing it this way? And does it have to be my way? I work with homeschool parents, and they want to do homeschool, right? Because they didn't like school, or maybe their child was bullied at school, or they're not learning in school. So they do homeschool. But when they're looking at curriculum and setting the whole thing up, what do? They bring school into the home. And we have to sit at the desk, and we have to do this, and we have to produce, and we have to read, and we have to check all the boxes. I'm like, wait a minute. The whole brilliance of homeschooling is that we can take the creativity of the child and teach to those strengths. Well, we're homeschooling 24/7 when our kids are in our care, right? So what strengths do they have that I need to find my creativity to foster that thing? Maybe they want to learn differently. Maybe they want to put the shoes differently. I don't know. But if I don't get down on their level and try and see it from their point of view and say, how do we make this fun? How do we make this different? How do we make this motivating? Because at the end of the day, we're really trying to build relationship and not obedience. So if I can come to you and say, tell me more about that. How could that work? Right? Instead of saying we can't, it's how can I? How can I help that work for you today? Changes the whole dynamic. The control, the frustration, the starts to lessen. And then when we get good at it, we can actually enjoy these days of finding how our kids like to learn and do and grow.
You and I are just same brain. So
We
you,
knew that when we met. Yes.
so our school system is built on one personality type.
Mm-hmm.
So the other personality types struggle to meet that dynamic. So one of the things I teach is how you identify yourself, your personality and your personality traits, but also your children, so that you know how to communicate in their language. You know what their motivating factors are, so that you can be more creative with them. And I wish to goodness I had gone through this and understood the different personality types, so that my relationship with my children would have been better. I would have understood more. They would have opened up more. So there's so many, factors, and so much to being a parent.
Right. That doesn't come in the instruction manual.
Right. We're not given one. We're just flying by the seat of our pants. And when, we don't have resources, or it's something that your parents didn't talk about, or you didn't go through, or it's taboo to reach out and get this type of a resource. It's taboo to have mental health concerns and need that help, or you know you just don't know that the resources are out there. That's why you and I are passionate about making sure that we get it to parents, get it to mama, get it to the children.
Get the information out there.
It helps the children when they go. So there's a portion of the personality trait identification program I do for children, so then they understand a lot about why their parents are who they are.
Yeah.
It's so eye-opening.
Yeah. Why does mama do that? Oh.
Yeah, and it's fun, interactive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Boy, tools, and tools.
Yeah.
I think, see, I don't even know. People say, because I've worked lifespan. I mean, I've done the 0 to 3-year-old, really young babies, and I've worked in the VA hospital at end of life with our veterans who have served so faithfully, right? So I have truly done lifespan services and just about everything in between. And so I have favorites for different reasons, but if I had to go back to work today, I think where I would go back to work is the 0 to 3-year-olds. Because when Jenny, either as a speech pathologist or a behavior analyst or a parent coach, developmental specialist, call me whatever you want, when just say nice things though, right? When I show up in your house, that's the age group that I like, because my main client is actually the parent. Even though I'm there to see the child, they expect that I'm going to show up and talk to mom for 30 to 45 minutes and coach mom and encourage mom and show mom how to do things. And in that, spend time working with that little one. But when you can help a family at that stage, then you just see such a different progression of where they go, as opposed to, a mom with a 15-year-old bonus child. And it's just like, wow, what do I do with this? I didn't have access to this child for the first 15 years. And I'll throw out there, though, some of the same principles still work. And so I'll tell you one, and then you can tell me, hey, I think you're crazy, or yeah, I bet that might work, right? So when I come in and mom's got a 2-year-old who's throwing tantrums on the floor and she doesn't know why, and she's like, so what do you want me to do? I'm like, the number one thing I ask them to do is to actually get rid of some words in their vocabulary. I don't know if you want to guess. I'll just tell you for time's sake. No, don't, and stop. Those 3 words. Yeah. Okay. And we're the highly trained professionals, Christy, right? I mean, this is what we do. And it's hard to get rid of those words. And I say, don't really get rid of them, but save them for emergencies, right? So when your 2-year-old is heading for the street, I want the biggest, scariest mama bear stop, so that kid has a reaction, and you have about a 1.5-second window to catch up to them and grab them before they're in legitimate serious danger. Okay. But if all day long they hear, stop, don't touch that. No, don't do that. Stop, quit it. Don't touch your brother. Stop touching the TV. Don't do that. Those words become powerless and they become meaningless, right? Don't hit your brother sounds like Joey hit your brother to a 2 and 3-year-old. There is no difference. So what do you get? Hit your brother. I heard that. That first thing where you call my name, I miss that. But I hear those words at the end. And it's just like, okay, so I'm not going to go around and say, hit your brother. So I can't just get rid of it. So what do I do? And it's simply tell them what you do want. Sit down, come to mom, nice hands, hold this, right? You can't hit your brother if you're holding this kind of thing. Go to your room, take a bite instead of don't spit, right? So it's, if we can turn the negative into the positive, then we have something very actionable that the child can work on, and something very actionable that mama can then demonstrate. And this is where I say, I think this will work lifespan. I do this with my husband. That's why I think it'll work lifespan. Is instead of saying, don't put the bags on the counter, I say, put the bags on the floor, and take a bag from his hand and set it on the floor. Right? So I'm modeling for him what I want. I don't have to tell him why. I just have to show him, yay, this works. And then mama's smiling, or wifey's smiling. So I'm thinking, if you've got a 15-year-old kiddo and they're walking in to put the backpack in the middle, and all the nasty germs from high school are now going in the middle of the dining room table because that backpack is going to plot right there. Well, you know what time the bus shows up, or you know what time you bring them in from the car. And when they walk in the door and they're going like this, you kind of help grab that backpack and you say, hey, let's put the backpack on the floor, and sit down by them and go, wow, what homework do we have today? Should we do snack first? And so it's just kind of a thing that happens. And probably the moms of the 12 to 15, 17-year-olds, this is actually maybe a little bit easier. You'll get rolling of eyes, you'll get attitude. It's okay. You just let that roll. That's not even a thing. But the little kids, mom says, well, I can't say don't hit your brother from over here, right? I sit on the couch all day long and I say, nice hands, Joey, nice hands. and they're sitting on the couch. Right? And so I walk over to mama because I get to show up in the homes and I say, hey, look, he's beating the crap out of him. Come stand with me. And we walk over to Joey and little Juancito, right? And we, gently separate them and say, hey, nice hands, guys. You play with the truck, you play with the blocks. I'm like, Mama, you can't say that from across the room. So it's really hard with those little kids, but you have to get up and walk over there. I tell them, you don't get to speak if you can't support what you're going to say before something else happens. So if you've got a kid who's moving like this, you better be really, really close by. If you have a kiddo that maybe will think about it for a minute and you have 2 seconds to get there, then as you're standing up from the couch, you can start talking. But our teenagers, we can just kind of be there and do these gentle interventions of showing them what we want in a positive, do this kind of way instead of, oh my gosh, don't do that. And we get to set the atmosphere.
Nice. Wow. That was a lot.
That was a lot. I know that's the hardest thing that I ask parents to do is get rid of no, don't, and stop.
Yeah.
Put things in the positive that you do want to have happen from that creative point of view. So it's not rule governed. This is going to help you learn better. This is going to help our life be more functional, not because it's my way or the highway. And then being willing to participate in that, or with our teens, sit there and wait while they do it and shut up and smile and be there for support when they need it.
Love it. Yeah, I see the value in that as well.
Yeah.
Because kids become desensitized to the don't, no, stop.
Hmm. Yeah.
Wow. So this has been a fantastic session. I thank you so much for coming in and
You're welcome.
yeah, it's been very good. Is there any parting words that you want to
I
express?
I mean, always, right? Don't I get paid to talk and love on people? So my encouragement is that I am so glad that you ladies are in a community. We can't do this alone. We just can't. And so to have a community of folks that you can reach out to say, man, I did it this way and it was a disaster. Who's had different success with this one is one of the best things that you can do for yourself
Right.
as a mama. Don't do this alone. Um, I'll like I said, I will, if I'll give you my email. That might be the easiest way to
Okay.
do it. Put the email in the comments or something. And when folks watch this, if they want that 30-page workbook on, how to say nice things, I will gladly email that out to them. I'm trying to get it on my website, but my IT person is out of town this week. And I was like, well, I got it in a PDF, so let me just email it to them. So that'll work. Um, and if folks want more information on an in-depth heart healing program, we do a mom's group and we do a couples group. There'll be information. I think it's on the last page of that Say Nice Thing book, but it basically says email me and we'll tell you when the next group is starting. Because again, it's groups create community and they create support, and you want somebody who can be with you when you say, man, I'm hurting, or, oh my gosh, I hurt my kid today, emotionally, right? I yelled at my kid. I know that created a hurt. I'm not sure I'm convinced on how to go pray for them, even when they are asleep. Well, then you've got a community that you can ask somebody. And we go through the whole process, right? We hurt people or we're hurt. Out of the hurt comes a bad attitude. Hey, what were you thinking? Out of the bad attitude comes an expectation that people are just always going to do that. Out of that expectation comes a vow that says, I'm never going to let them do that. And out of that whole pattern become behavior habits that we just can't get out of even when we want to. So that's the first 5 weeks of the class. And then weeks 6, 7, and 8 are once you've learned how to pray through those things and get freedom from it, then how do you start working on some of the behavior patterns and legacy setting, blessings, different things, making new memories on the last couple of weeks. So it's really a condensed brain dump, if you will. but we try and make that available to families, to moms, so that they can start learning some of these skills to change what's in their heart so that things in their family grow and develop differently.
I guess I forgot to unmute myself. I love it. Again, thank you so much for coming in and talking to my mamas. Everything you had to say was golden. It was just amazing.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you so much.
Absolutely. I'm glad I could help out today. This has been beautiful.
Awesome. All right. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your day and week, and we'll make sure we get that information inside the group if anybody wants to reach out to you.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.